This is another episode of Dangerous Ideas. My name is Shawn. I'm an innovation strategist. What we do is we break down concepts and frameworks that will change your life. Oh, wow. Hey, everyone. This is another episode of Dangerous Ideas. In this podcast, what we do is we break down concepts and frameworks that will change your life, change your career, change your business, but most importantly, change your life. And I'm super excited to have this pod today. We actually have one of the co-founders of Field Notes, Faaiza Ramji, on. Hello, welcome.
Hey, Shawn, thanks for having me back.
And guess what? The aesthetic. Look at this aesthetic. You got to be happy. We got Field Notes here, right beside me, right behind me, and right beside you.
I feel incredible walking in here and seeing my brand everywhere. First of all, it's an honor because I think it's just such a kind gesture when people take these little opportunities to make you feel special. So I appreciate that. And then second, you know, we're in such a digital world all the time, and me making a physical product, it never gets old seeing your physical product somewhere, seeing something 100%. That you built, right? You probably feel that way about your book when you walk around and you see it somewhere. It's like, wow, I made that, and I was committed enough to make it, and then somebody's committed enough to putting it on the shelf.
It's actually even more impressive.
Yes.
Because people know how hard it is, especially booze.
Yeah.
Just the regulation, you know, around it, you know, how people understand that.
Yeah.
So to see, I'm sure just to see it like out is really, really cool. And by the way, for the first time ever, you signed a bottle. I'm surprised that this is the first time you signed a bottle. Actually, I don't know if this is the
now I'm surprised too. Why has no one asked me to sign a bottle before? I feel like that should have happened earlier, but that was a very cool experience. No one's asked me to do it. And, you know, again, my mom is going to be embarrassed by my penmanship, but it felt really cool to sign something that's not an invoice. So that was amazing.
Well, listen, this is an incredible, like, Sweet Pea to me is like, it is everything that I think you know, it's funny because this podcast, we don't really introduce the guests you know, it's really about the ideas at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But can you just give like a little bit of a description of the background of Field Notes and particularly this product? We can get into Jaya.
Sure. Yeah, you bet. Well, I think it's funny because, like, you know, one thing that I always say that my superpower is curiosity. And I don't know how to be interested in something without really diving into it or doing something with it. And, you know, for me with Field Notes, that was kind of the impetus. That's where all this came from, is I was curious about why we don't do more with our agriculture here in Alberta. We grow a bunch of things, we sell them off, and then we buy them back as finished product. That felt lazy to me. I was like, well, there must be a good reason why people aren't doing more. And through this process, I've learned the reason people aren't doing more with it is because it's really hard. But we should be making more food, and we should be invested in food. And that's hard for any one person to do, any one farmer who even sees the potential and the opportunity. For them to buy hundreds of millions of dollars worth of equipment is not realistic. But I was like, well, I just want to see, and I want to understand how we could turn these products into more food ingredients. And so I started down a path of trying to make like a snack food product. And then along the way, you know, all of your journeys, you just meet a bunch of incredible people.
Yep.
So I met somebody who introduced me to someone else, who introduced me to someone else. Ended up meeting a farmer from southern Alberta. And we were going to make a dairy alternative out of peas. And we did that. And then the pandemic hit. And so we were kind of scared to scale it up in a way where we didn't know how we were going to like sample it or get it in people's hands. And then the idea of booze came along because I saw somebody was turning beans into beer. And so I was like, well, I bet you we could turn peas into alcohol. And it turns out you can. And there's actually a really good climate opportunity there as well. It's really great for the environment to be growing more peas. And so then when I started turning it into something, I was like, well, wouldn't it be cool to make it into a product that like really represents where I'm from and represents Alberta. So I wanted it to taste like walking through a field or a garden. And you said earlier to me that you think it does taste like, you kind of said that on your own, that it tastes like a garden.
It tastes like it doesn't taste like alcohol.
Yeah.
It tastes like, and I'm not a big like hard liquor. So this is different.
Yes.
To me, it tastes like, just like a fresh garden.
Yeah, and I'm not a big hard alcohol person either. I'm actually more of a craft beer drinker or a wine, because I like easy things, basically, at the end of the day. I want to buy something that I can just like pour and drink.
Yeah.
And that's why I like Amaro, the category of Amaro, because us being South Asian, we're used to our parents having all these like remedies and things. You know, your mom tells you like, oh, boil this, put these seeds in water and drink it if your stomach's hurting, or do this and do that. Italians and French people, a lot of Europeans do the same thing. And that's where Amaro came from. But also I like the fact that each Amaro tastes like its own unique drink, and you don't really need to add anything to it. And so that's what I wanted to do with Sweet Pea, is how do I make something that somebody basic like me can just pour into a glass over some ice, maybe add a little soda water if they want, but not really have to fuss too much, not have to buy a bunch of ingredients to enjoy it. Just, explore and be curious and have fun.
I'm so it's an incredible story. It's an incredible Alberta story. I am angry I'm just angry at how like the media hasn't like blown this up because it's delicious. It's incredible.
Thank you.
I'm walking into Edmonton International Airport, going into customs. I go to that customs every week because I'm going to the States like every week.
Yeah.
And I see this product and it's incredible.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this should be on like the biggest billboards, in this province and globally, because it's such an amazing product. And maybe it's just because I just want like this to be everywhere. But yeah, it's just waiting to blow up.
Thank you. And you know what? I hope it does. And, that's the goal, is to try to take this outside of Alberta and outside of Canada to tell this story. In Alberta, we're lucky. We have a very open regulatory system when it comes to alcohol. I thought it was very prohibitive when I first started, because anything regulatory is prohibitive. But when I look at the other provinces, we are actually the most open and business friendly when it comes to alcohol, which is actually kind of funny, because you wouldn't necessarily think that. But I think the challenge around Alberta is that we've become such an either or province. It's like we want to talk about AI, so we won't talk about oil and gas. We want to talk about oil and gas, so we won't talk about ag. But why can't we talk about everything? Because they're all interrelated in a lot of ways.
Right.
And so I find that really frustrating to me, is like this idea that we can't have an entrepreneurial mindset about anything where there's an opportunity. Like, we're always sitting on these gold mines around here, and we get in our own way. And I find that part to be the most frustrating. So I share your anger a little bit, not necessarily just about my products, but about what a lot of people are doing in that I've learned about in this province, and how they're trying to turn, it shouldn't be 1 + 1 = 2. We actually have the opportunity to make 1 + 1 = 5.
Yeah.
And we're just not taking it. And that's sad to me.
No, it's incredible. So like the first dangerous idea I want to bring to you, and it's kind of related to the hustle of entrepreneurship, which you've been in the game for a very long time. It's this idea that, and I think Paul Graham is the initial author of this idea, which is do things that don't scale, which is at the end of the day, even these high scale organizations, it's just guerrilla warfare, one-on-one battle, like try to get your product anywhere, try to get the first customer, try to get the first user. And it might be like that for months or years or maybe even decades, like trying to get one person to buy, and then another, and then another, and then another. And at the end of the day, even the most high-scale companies, the Facebooks or the Reddits of the world or the Airbnbs, all they did was maybe Facebook's not a great example, but like they just got one person and then another.
I think Facebook actually is a good example, because it started for college kids, right? So I think this idea of like narrowing down your target or making something for one person, I do like that. It reminds me of what Seth Godin says about find your 1,000 true fans before you go and find the rest. Because
I think Kevin Kelly said that.
Oh, was it Kevin Kelly? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man, can we edit that?
No, that's okay. Yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, if you're making something for everyone, you're making it for no one. But if you're making it for someone specific, there's enough of those specific people around the world that eventually you'll find them. But also you're creating like ambassadors, right? If I make something that everybody loves, it's not controversial to talk about it. It's not a conversation starter. It's not interesting. It's just whatever. But if I find something that one person really loves and then another person really loves, they're going to go out and talk about it. So now they're exponentially growing my market. So I do agree with that concept. I just think, it also makes it harder to be an entrepreneur, which I think it should be hard. Everything is hard.
Yeah.
And if it was easy, everybody would do it.
There you go.
Right? Like it's not, when I look at entrepreneurship, if it was about getting rich, I think there's a million ways you can get rich. And I wish I knew what those were because I would have already done them. But this is not necessarily the way. It might become the way at some point, hopefully, who knows? But like, I think as you know, the journey is more exciting than the destination half the time. It's also more frustrating and more difficult than the destination.
Well, you should appreciate the journey more than the destination.
Exactly.
That's where you learn. And if you're not enjoying the journey, then you're definitely not going to enjoy the destination. I don't think either.
But as I get older, I do also think with entrepreneurship, I'm less willing to give up certain things in my life. Like I'm not willing to live, that typical entrepreneurship lifestyle where the quintessential image of someone like, eating cheap ramen and living in their parents' basement. Like I'm not willing to give up the things that I've managed to acquire in my life, but I am willing to make some sacrifices 100%. You have to be. But I think if it's always torturous, that's not fun.
Yeah.
But if it's not a little torturous, then like, what are you learning? Who are you meeting? Like, I think those are kind of the side benefits. And I'm sure, again, like if I think about you and your book, who are all the people you met along the way in making it? Who did you discover along the way in writing that, right? That is as important to the story as the book itself.
And I think it's the idea of, by just literally putting yourself in a different environment, because you have to, when you're creating something from scratch, you have to put yourself in a different environment. You inevitably just unlock more relationships, more networks, more ideas. And so the more that you can push yourself, the more that you learn. And that's why I think that, you're such a seasoned entrepreneur, whether it's, starting in like you went to Calgary, finance, and then, working for somebody else, then like being in the restaurant game, being in, consulting, marketing, to running, this alcohol brand. Like it's crazy. If you actually think about it and you go back throughout history, like all those things that you've done have actually pushed you in different directions. And because of that, like you're not able to do the things, like for example, you literally, I don't know if you were the founder or the co-founder. Anyways, let's say the founder of the Edmonton Cocktail Week.
Yeah.
And I'm like just so impressed that you just did that. Like, aren't you busy enough? Why are you running an event for a week? Like,
I know.
Crazy.
It is crazy, but it's also like sometimes I feel like because I'm not in a space that's super technical and hard to get into, like you just have to have an idea and you got to break it down to something granular enough that it's just easy. It's just one step after another, after another, after another, right? Like I'm not trying to start with this big idea where I'm trying to solve some sort of global crisis or something like that. I just want to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, how do I do that? How do I do that? How do I do that? And you just keep growing incrementally. And I think if you have broad experiences, then the next time you do something, you pull those broad experiences together. And that's, I think, one of the biggest challenges about when I look back on my life, and I'm so grateful to my parents for this, but like, that's one of the big challenges of getting someone to pick their major or their career when they're 17 or 18 years old. What do you know? I didn't know anything. I still feel like I don't know anything, and I'm in my 40s. And that's the beauty, is that we don't know anything in the grand scheme of things, because the world is changing and there's so much new information and new opportunities. How can you ever know everything? You don't. And now as adults, we glorify that and we glamorize that. Like that's actually really interesting that we don't know a lot and there's so much to be discovered. But yet when you're a kid, people expect you to at least have some idea of what you want to be when you grow up. How? Would you ever have looked at your life and be like, oh, this is exactly where I'm going to be? No, you want to be an accountant.
So then what advice would you give to somebody that is 20 years old? They're like third year, second year university. They're trying to figure it out.
Well, you got to balance being able to get a job after school. That is a real thing. We need money. We need a career. But I would say the biggest thing is just be curious all the time. Ask questions and say yes to things. You know, like Shonda Rhimes wrote a book, Year of Yes. And when I read that, I was like, it should be the life of yes. Because but that takes a vulnerability, I think, and even creating something takes vulnerability. And I think that's the side of entrepreneurship that we maybe gloss over a little bit, is like, you're putting yourself out there, and ultimately a lot of people are not going to like what you do. And that's okay, because you as a person don't like everything that everybody does. But when you don't like something, when you don't like a product, you don't make it personal. You might say, I don't like this coffee table. You're not saying, I hate the person who made this coffee table and the person who designed this is garbage. You're just saying, this is not my vibe. And people will say that about my products. This is not my vibe. But it's hard not to take that personally. It's hard not to put yourself in your work.
Yeah.
So entrepreneurship is vulnerable. So I think the earlier that you can learn to be vulnerable, the better. And I didn't really learn that. And I was always curious, but I was never curious enough as I have been as an adult.
The problem, I think, is, and I talk a lot about this in this pod, which is like, I think early in your career, you're like engineered to think about status. So when you're 20, what do you want? You want money, you want a good job, you want a good title, you want to work for a good brand. Like, all of these things are about status.
Yeah.
And actually throughout the years, what you actually learn is that actually you should not optimize for any of those things.
Yeah.
What you should be optimizing for is learning, for being curious, for hunger, for trying different things. And actually later in life, what you learn is that actually by having like you're not able to create these products unless you go through the mud of like finding what you're good at and what you like. And unfortunately people only figure that out like later in life.
Yeah.
The problem is that there's too many anomalies. There's too many people that are successful too early on. And then we point to those people and look at those people when 99.99% of those people are not those people.
Exactly.
That's the problem.
Well, the other thing is, like, in our systems in life early on, our systems are built on conformity. And it's not because people want us to all be the same. It's because we're always in a scarcity mindset. So like, if you think about school, right? Like, school is built to keep kids moving along at a certain pace. And it's trying to do a lot of great things. I don't think there's anything bad in what they're trying to do. But by nature, it becomes conformist. And it actually starts to like squash your creativity and your curiosity. Because if you're too creative and too curious, you're disruptive. And you're also you're not balancing this idea of like skills versus just wandering thinking. And I'm not blaming schools. I think schools are very important. But I just think that all in our society, we're always built to be walking a path that is predictable and repeatable, right? But then the magic comes from when you do things that are not repeatable. To your point earlier about what Paul Graham said about building things that don't scale. So if things don't scale, they're inefficient. And in certain parts of our lives, we need to be efficient, and in certain parts we don't.
Yeah.
So how do you balance those things? I don't know.
Yeah, I love that. And I believe that, I believe that efficiency has, and I'm building like a keynote out of this, which is efficiency has 3 enemies: innovation, trust, and I forgot the luck. So if you're efficient and you're super optimized and process driven, you're not going to find, like, innovation is about like finding value in new ways. You're not going to try new ways by just being efficient. You never get lucky if you're efficient, because you're never putting yourself in an environment where you're, unlocking new things. And then trust, when you turn everything into the most efficient way of doing something, you actually suck out the context, the nuance, and then that impacts trust. So I think 3 enemies of innovation: trust. Anyways.
Well, I like that. And I agree with that, because even I think about me, sometimes I get into like a productivity slump. I don't know if you ever get this way, but like lately I feel like I'm putting in a lot of hours of work, but I'm not actually getting anything done these days. And I feel like my procrastination is like next level. And part of it is I'm not giving myself enough free space to do nothing, because I am trying to be super efficient and I am busy, and I've like started to like plug up my time a lot, that there's not as much emptiness and just sitting and doing nothing. And that's when even creativity bubbles up, right? Is when you're not thinking about stuff, and you got to give yourself this, like, you got to create negative space. So when COVID started back in 2020, I had these old lady walks, as I called them. So I used to do old lady walk in the morning and one in the evening as my commute to my home office. And I've been doing them ever since. I don't do the afternoon one anymore because, I've got other things to do now.
Yeah.
But I do the morning ones, and I stopped at the end of October, just this past year, just because I got busy and I was tired. And something happened in that October to now time frame where I find that because I don't go for that walk first thing in the morning, I don't have the flashes of inspiration. I don't solve problems without thinking about them. I'm actually now having to focus on my problems work-wise that I can't solve because I'm thinking about them too much.
Would you walk and not listen? You're just like,
I would listen. I would listen to a podcast every morning. I loved all the podcasts. That's when I got into podcasts. And so I would listen, and I listened to a lot of stuff, but sometimes they turned into white noise. Right. So they were there just for the sound. And I think what the podcast allows me to do is turn off my brain a little bit and be passive and just listen. But also it feels like I'm somewhere different every day, even though I'm walking the exact same route because I know how long that route is and how far I can go. But it's boring. It's a residential area. But by listening to a podcast, it felt different.
So you back to walking?
So I started last week again.
Okay.
Felt the difference. This week I didn't go because it was too windy. I was being such a baby about it. I was like, man, it's so windy. So I went one day this week.
Hey, I guess the biggest enemy of creativity is wind.
100%. 100%. Because, I invested in good outerwear for every season, but you can't optimize for wind because your face just gets like slapped around when you're walking.
Right.
What do you do?
Wind sucks. Cold
wind
is
really
fine.
sucks.
Wind sucks.
100%.
Okay, so let me get to the next dangerous idea.
Sure.
And I think this is the reason, one of the reasons why I love having you on, because there are very few people. I don't know if you meet people like this throughout your life, where I just believe that there's certain people that just have taste. And I feel like taste is a very scarce resource, super scarce. And I know that you are somebody that has taste. Okay, you could see it. I mean, look at this product. Like, you can tell this is somebody that, and I know you designed this, and you can tell by the aesthetics. You can tell by the design. You go to the website. You look at this product. It's tasteful. It's, and I don't want to insult marketers out there or people in brand. But I find people that are in the marketing and branding space, most of them have but they have little taste. They don't understand culture, what people like. And I just find that it's such a scarce resource. And I remember, even working at Deloitte, like when I found people that had taste, like how to put something together that is aesthetically pleasing, I grabbed a hold of them and I just wanted them on my projects.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about this, because do you find this as well? I don't want to insult everyone else.
So I do. No, I do. And I've been thinking about it a lot lately. And so, so first of all, thank you for your comments about my tastefulness. So
I mean, the product is like the actual product is tasty, but like,
but visually in the image. So, it's interesting because I never thought that I was creative growing up. I actually did not think that. And a good friend of mine, Bijan Zever, who actually is the one who designed that bottle, great
ball hockey player, by the way. But yeah,
that's right. He is a great ball hockey and an even better soccer player. But I think what's interesting is like he taught me that I am creative. I may not have the artistic expression that I'm looking for, but I am creative in my problem solving, in my ideas. But then I think the magic, you're right, is that taste, because like I came up with that name, and Don't Call Me Sweet Pea, and I came up with field notes, and I came up with the vibe that I wanted. But you can't have every skill and do everything yourself. So you need to find people who can be on that same level with you, but bring a different expression of that. So, I work with a lot of designers. I work with a lot of photographers, and you're the same. We've worked with a lot of creative people. You can explain to them tactically what you're looking for. Okay, I'm looking for a label. I'm looking for a website. I'm looking for whatever. You can give them the elements, but they can't always put it together the way in your mind. And I think when I work with anybody creative on the marketing side, there's the idea that I have in my head about what I want this thing to make me feel or make someone feel, or the vibe that I'm trying to create, but I can't explain to you what I want it to look like. Like when I saw this bottle for the first time, this label, this brand, I was blown away because I would never have told Bijan that this is what I wanted to look like. But I gave him the elements and I gave him the vibe. And I'm like, this is what I want to achieve with it.
Right.
And another marketer might look at this label and say, well, technically you've missed the mark a few ways. You've done this wrong. You've done this wrong. You could have optimized this. You could have done that. And tactically, yes, they're probably correct. I've learned things about the name. It's too long. It doesn't fit on a menu properly. Things that I've learned along the way. But from a vibe perspective, he nailed it. And the aesthetic that he created gives me the vibe that I was going for before I even knew that that was what I wanted it to look like. And now when people comment on the bottle, even though I didn't physically design it, I take so much pride in it. And it is important because it stands out on the shelf. When people see it in a crowded bar, they notice it. It pops out at them because it's the opposite of everything around them. So I think having taste.
How do you teach taste?
You don't, but you have to recognize that taste can be good or bad. So just because somebody has bad taste doesn't mean they don't have taste. They just have bad taste. But I think it's about looking at things in a discerning way. So for you, you may not know what your taste is or how to describe it, but you know you have it because when you look at one thing versus another, you can tell that something draws you to this thing, but something draws you away from something else. So I think the practice comes in, how do you train yourself to recognize it and then maybe articulate it?
Right.
And I haven't gotten there yet because I don't think I've put the discipline into thinking about it because no one's actually ever made me think about it until right now. But I would say that might be a way. And I think teaching taste, you can't do it. But what you can do is, that's again about curiosity. You got to expose yourself to a bunch of things. You have to consume media. You have to read magazines. You got to look at stuff online. And whether or not you realize you're doing it, you are developing your aesthetic and your taste.
Yeah. There's a great book that I mention a ton by Pauline Brown. It's called Aesthetic Intelligence.
Ooh, gotta get that.
She said it's the other AI.
Cool.
Which is, probably more important than the actual AI. And actually it's perfect because taste is like, aesthetic intelligence is like the opposite of AI, right?
Yeah.
AI will give you something that's mediocre or boring or something that's in the middle. It's not going to give you something that like moves your soul, right? And taste could be, aesthetic intelligence doesn't have to be just about, design. It could be about, sound. It could be about fashion. It could be about taste, like the physical taste of something. It could be about a vibe. And I think this is so important because I think in an increasingly more AI world, the people that actually have taste will be more important, but it's just like something that you can't teach. Like I said, even hiring people, just being able to see what they produce. And it's I think we chatted about this last time. It's like interior design is very different than something that's digital.
Yeah.
Or like a video is very different than a picture. It depends what you're hiring for. Like, I feel like I have a good sense of like video, but I have no idea about interior design. Like, I wouldn't be able to tell you how to set something up, but I just know what I like. Right.
Yes.
But so anyways, it's just hard.
It is hard.
For people to have this so that I can hire them.
But I think a lot of it also, again, comes back to like the problem solving idea, because even if you think about taste in a world that seems maybe not aesthetic. So even if I think about, let's think accounting. Okay. So if I think about accounting, nobody thinks automatically that that's the most like vibey career or the most vibey function in a business. But it's all about how you approach something and how you problem solve and the story you're trying to tell. Accountants are trying to tell a story with numbers. They are trying to tell you the story of your business. They are trying to tell you the story of what's going to happen in the future with your money. Like, there are a lot of stories you're trying to tell if you're interested in telling a story. If you're not interested in telling a story, they're filing your taxes.
Yeah.
And that's it. But even then, if you're a good accountant, you're telling the government a story about how this person's money should be interpreted and whether or not they're going to get anything back or they're going to owe or whatever. So the hiring question is a really tough one. Like, I actually am trying to avoid ever hiring anybody because I don't actually always know what I'm looking for, because oftentimes I'm not looking for the skill, right? Like, I'm not looking for somebody to be able to tell me something that I could have figured out by Googling it. I'm trying to get somebody to show me something in a different way than what I would think of myself. And that's where I find like generative AI, for example, or even like, these creator tools like Canva and stuff like that. I love them all, but I struggle with them a lot because like when I look at Canva, it's giving me the ability to make something out of what's in my head come to life in a really easy way without me learning a new tool set. But what if I don't know what's in my head? That's where I get stuck. So if I'm looking at a blank graphic and I'm like, I need to do something to communicate this point. Great. I still don't know what to do. I know that I want a certain aesthetic. I know it needs to have a certain negative space, certain fonts, this and that, but I don't know what those are. So how do I figure that out, right? And that kind of goes back to your point about the person who has taste and that aesthetic intelligence being maybe more important than the AI, because the AI is like the how.
Yeah.
The how you're going to do something. And it can help you along the way. And I think from a generative perspective, especially, it can give you a lot of like superpowers that you didn't have before. But you still have to have the root idea. And now I'm going to go read Aesthetic Intelligence because I think that book sounds cool.
It's really incredible. And I think, I don't want to, do you as a because I'm not in the field of marketing, but I love marketing.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, because I market, I am kind of like a marketer, but I'm not in I didn't study marketing. I just do marketing, right? And I find that there's a lot of marketers that they don't understand. And I think it's maybe they don't have a good appreciation of people, right? Isn't marketing fundamentally about people and understanding people and what people like? Like, you could be a tastemaker and you don't necessarily have to know what the people want, because you're actually creating you're actually creating something. But I feel the essence of becoming a marketer is actually understanding people, and yet I find a lot of marketers don't understand people.
So I think marketing is a spectrum. It is a variety of things. So I didn't go to school for marketing either. So I always feel like I'm still not a marketer. And I was actually having this conversation with a friend of mine just a couple of weeks ago. We were in Chicago and we were talking about this. We were on just a little trip. And I don't know how to do marketing either. So if you ask me to run Facebook ads for something, I don't know how to do it. If you ask me to build a media plan, no clue how to do it. I think that I understand, and I think this is what you understand as well, is product development. So if you think about marketing as everything before you sell the product and then the act of selling the product, I'm really good at the before the product stuff. And that comes from understanding people, understanding dependencies, and understanding partnerships. Right? That has nothing to do with actually how you're going to sell and promote the product.
Selling is different.
And even promoting. Promoting, right? So promoting is one side of marketing. Building something is the other. So when you talk about it being about people, whenever anybody asks me, if you can go back to school, what would you take? I would take cultural anthropology. I would take history. And I would probably take some sort of behavioral economics. To me, those are marketing courses. I took finance. And the most like boring type of finance you could possibly imagine, because I thought I wanted to be an investment banker. But now if I look back, it's like you just actually want to understand how people and the world work.
Yeah.
Because if you can understand that, you can create products for them. You can market to them. You just may not know how to promote that thing that you're marketing.
Yeah. Well, to me, the best school is actually going to like parties and talking to people.
100%.
And just like talk to somebody for like 5 hours, and you'll start to understand. And just watch people. Just watch what they do. Watch what they're wearing. Like, that's my favorite thing to do in another city, is just to like watch people. I'm fascinated. I just love just looking at people. I love like my favorite thing to do in the world is seeing what other people are looking at on their phones. Like I love being in an airport, and most people are sitting around the airport. I love not only seeing the people that at the airport, but I love seeing what they're looking at the phone. And actually, if you go, what's the shitty part about this is that actually, if no matter where you are around the world, actually people are doing the same thing.
Yeah,
they're on the same apps. It's not different. They're on the same apps. They're doing the same thing. They're going to Instagram, look at their pictures. They're looking at their bank accounts. They're looking
Yeah.
And anyways, it's like being curious about people is I think the most important trait for a marketer.
I 100% agree. And I think that's why, and even for an entrepreneur, and I think that's why like some of my friends always say they don't want to travel with me because they want to go on like a relaxing beach vacation, all inclusive.
Right.
And I love cities. I love the hustle and bustle, but I don't want to be busy in those cities when I'm on vacation. I actually like grabbing a coffee, sitting somewhere and looking at everybody else, just like you said about the airport, because it's really interesting what you see about people. I remember the first time I went to Amsterdam, and first of all, just seeing the way people ride their bikes and how stylish they look riding their bikes. Like nobody looks like a cyclist. Everybody looks like, a fashion icon riding their bikes, and they've got their kid in the basket. Nobody's wearing a helmet, obviously. But they look so cool. And even like there's markets everywhere. So they're stopping to buy fresh flowers every other day for their home. We don't do that. We don't just stop on the street. But the other thing that I found so interesting about certain places that I went to in Europe is that when you sit outside a cafe or a restaurant with your food and your drink, the chairs aren't facing each other. All the chairs are facing out onto the street, right? Because everybody is like still part of the world without being in it. They're resting, they're doing whatever they're doing, but they're still watching the world, and their back is not to it. And I thought that was the coolest thing. And I was like, this is so interesting. And why don't we do that? Why don't we look at what's going on around us all the time here? And to me, that's the best part of traveling, is just seeing how they do things. Like even when I went to Tokyo for the first time in 2008, I was with a couple of friends, and we were eating our snacks while we were walking, and somebody came up to us and was like, "Oh, we don't do that. You got to sit in the park," because they believe in sitting and enjoying your food and then walking. They don't do two things at the same time like we do. And I was like, that's interesting. Like I didn't realize that that's a cultural faux pas.
Right.
You know, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so this is not a dangerous idea, but it's a dangerous question, because this is something that we've talked about over the last number of years, which is around direct-to-consumer. And the question I'm asking is direct-to-consumer dead? Is DTC dead?
No.
It's not?
No.
Because the playbook that people had for DTC is you come up with a product, you run some Facebook ads and Instagram ads, you push them to like a landing page, and then to some Shopify site, somebody presses done, and then it ships.
Yeah.
And have some sort of nice aesthetic, nice colored aesthetic, and then now you're done.
I think that DTC is not dead. I think the model has changed. I think DTC is
what is the new playbook then?
So I think it's omnichannel. Yeah. And I think it's a mix. I think retail is going to make a huge comeback, but I think the way that we think about retail is going to change. The spaces are going to be smaller. They're going to be more well curated, and they're not actually going to be about buying the product. They're going to be about interacting with or discovering the product. Look at Gen Z, right? They're saying Gen Z is like kind of detaching from their phones and doing this, but DTC is like your distribution channel. And retail is your discovery channel. I've been going to the mall recently. So usually I've not gone to a mall. Like I go to mall to return stuff, but I don't go to the mall to just like aimlessly wander and shop. I haven't done that in a long time. I've done that 3 times in the last month because I have been annoyed about the fact that I can't look at a fabric's texture. I can't look at how something fits. Like, I don't know if you've ever gone on the Zara website. Zara's website, okay, is ridiculous. Their clothes, you can't even tell if it's a shirt or a dress because people are contorted in these weird ways trying on the clothes, and they have like
the images?
Yeah, the images are terrible. They look like an editorial fashion ad versus actually a functional thing showing you what the product looks like and what it would look like on you. So, and if you go on TikTok, you can see a bunch of people like recreating Zara editorial photography, and it's hilarious. That's the next thing you got to watch.
Got it.
But when I go to the mall now, I'm like, okay, I want to know how fabric looks. I want to see how other people are wearing this product. I want to see the fit of it to kind of know, like, is this even going to look good on me? Certain things just don't look good on everybody. Yeah. And
by the way, you're describing something that people always did.
I know, but I think the way that they're doing it is going to change because I think I'm not always making the purchase at the mall because the mall now is cutting down on inventory. So what if they don't have my size, or what if they sold out of something? So I think it's about connecting retail and digital.
Wow. So people go and see it in retail.
Yes.
So it's reversed now. Like retail and then buy it online. Discovery.
That's right.
And then buy. Okay.
Like I'm in a store most of the time finding, like I've noticed more people have QR
not
codes.
DTC. To me, that means DTC's, that's like, yeah, I don't know. I guess you're still buying it. You're still buying it from the website.
That's right. I'm still buying it from the website because that's making distribution ubiquitous, right? If I live in a place where that store doesn't exist, say I'm in a different country and the exchange rate is just ridiculous, or I travel with a carry-on like I do. I only travel with carry-on. I can't buy things and come home. But oftentimes when you're on a holiday is when you slow down, you find things, you try things on, whatever.
Right.
But now what if I find an amazing coat and I know I can get the coat online? I don't have room in my carry-on all of a sudden. I can't wear 3 coats in the airport. I mean, I could. I've done it before. But I think it's about like, how do I now earmark that? Or while I'm even there, just purchase it and have it come to my house.
Right.
It's an interesting play. So I think you're right. DTC, the way we've known it to be so far, is dead. But I don't think that channel is ever going to go away. It's just going to be used differently.
That's so fascinating. What's a DTC product that you've like bought, like a pure play DTC product that they're not in retail. And when I say a pure play, they're
Yeah.
probably not. They're digital first. They're native digital first. And I'll tell you probably where you've gotten something. You've gotten something from Shein.
No,
or
I've
Temu.
never shopped at Shein or Temu. I don't. So the funny thing about me is when it comes to like buying stuff, I want the ability to easily return something.
Right.
Okay, so that's why I don't buy from there. I think like my contact lenses, Clearly Contacts.
Right.
Before they used to have stores, they were my pure play.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you still get stuff from Clear Contacts?
I do. I just don't wear my contacts a lot anymore, so I buy them very slowly.
Right.
But yeah, I think contact lenses were my pure play DTC. I don't actually buy a lot of things that are natively DTC.
But if I talk to a lot of people, I don't think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Buy a lot of things that are pure play like DTC. Like, I think one of the problems is that Shein, what Shein and Temu have discovered is that people just want cheap stuff, fast. They want really great discovery, and they just get it to me. Just like Amazon this thing to me. And Shein and Temu are absolutely crushing. And I'm actually worried for small and medium-sized businesses that are in the retail space in the US and Canada, because China can just make them cheaper, and they've figured out the supply chain and logistics to get it. They figured out the discovery and the supply chain and logistics piece, and now they can get you a cheap pair of shoes that probably are not that great, but they can get it to you.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the biggest problem going forward, is that independent brands are going to have a really hard time, harder than they've ever had. Because if discovery is happening in person more, and I'm not saying this is necessarily true, this is just my reality, but if discovery happens in person and then distribution happens online, how are independent brands going to be able to afford a retail space or something? Maybe they don't even want that, right? And so I think that is going to be a tougher problem to solve.
Well, you have a brand.
Yeah.
So like, how do you get in front of people today?
It's very one-to-one. It's really
guerrilla
difficult.
marketing.
Yeah, it is guerrilla marketing, because it's also something that somebody, similar to trying on clothes, you have to taste something to know that you're going to like it and buy more of it. And it's really hard. Like this is what, who did it really well? Selena Gomez. So Selena Gomez, with her Rare Beauty brand, she did an incredible job of marketing digitally, but then having omni-channel distribution. So no matter where you went, you could purchase her product, whether you were in a mall or you were online. And like, I can't do that yet. So if you try my product and you're like, I love this, I want to buy it, and it's not available at the retail stores around you, you're going to forget about it.
Yeah,
you see an ad online, you can't buy it online, you'll forget.
Yeah, but your example is, that's Selena Gomez.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the unfair advantage.
Selena Gomez, if you're looking for another brand to invest in and be a co-founder in. So
what are the So to me, and I was going to bring this up a little bit later, but I think this is a good point. This is a good point of bringing this dangerous idea. Is I believe that the most valuable channels for marketing in the future will be the channels that you trust the most. So what does that mean? What are things that you trust the most? You're probably trusting a creator because you invested a ton of time seeing them, watching them. It's a person, you have affinities towards them. Long form video, long form podcasts.
Yeah.
And then, partnering with like super established institutions and just like collaborations. Like you go back to the incumbents. None of those actually fall into like a pure play independent brand. Somebody's just coming out of something from out of nowhere. Because it's hard to gain trust at the end of the day. And in an increasingly more AI-driven world, I think it's going to be harder to get. So like, what are the trusted channels today? I think those are it. And those are going to be the ones that are going to be most important in the future. So if I was a brand today, correct me if I'm wrong, you're the marketer. The way that I would run a brand today, if I were you, I would say, okay, I built this incredible product. How do I find a creator that I can give a huge equity piece to that actually truly believes in this, that actually fundamentally to the core believes in this, and they will carry this around all day long. And of course, because this story is very much born out of Alberta, it's peas. Like you find like a farmer, like a really relevant farmer that has that, that community around them, that they will walk around this every single day. Now that's one way. Two is like just long form storytelling.
Yeah.
Like just punish the algorithms with long form, interesting, insightful, deep, rich storytelling. Somebody like Andrew Huberman, despite the fact that he dates 6 women at the same time, what he does really well, not only is a creator, but he creates like these long form podcasts. They're rich, they're deep, and the reason why, as soon as he puts a product in front of anybody, people will buy it because they have so much trust in that person.
Yes.
And the other way is going and is partnering up with a super established incumbent brand that already has distribution. They already have eyeballs. It's like their umbrella is, shines on you, and then you go from there.
Yeah. Well, I think the common denominator with all so I think you're right, first
it's
of all.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because it's unfortunate it's like a way harder path for individual brands to get noticed today.
It's so hard. And I think, but when you look at the 3 channels that you talked about, or the 3 things that you can do, the common denominator with all those is people, right? People buy from people that they like and that they trust.
Totally.
And that's part of the reason that even big brands like Nike, for example, invest in people. Their brands are about the athletes that they support or whatever. That's always been the play, because no one's buying a shoe because they like the company's logo. They're buying a shoe because they saw how it could make them feel through another person, or what it could help them achieve, or who they want to be like. So I think it is ultimately always about people. And yeah, like, when I look at my newer product, Jaya, which is a chai liqueur, part of the reason I did that was because of this idea of storytelling through product. And I think as South Asians, when we were younger, because our parents immigrated to North America, we weren't sure what our identity was, right? Like, we were South Asian at home, but when we were out in the world, we tried to assimilate. It was kind of weird to be of a different culture. It wasn't really well understood. Now you've got these people that are of South Asian descent that are born here, and their parents are also born here, that have a new type of confidence, and they want to learn more about their culture, and they want to be bold about it. And people are curious enough about other cultures and not as afraid as they used to be about other cultures. So, with Jaya, I'm like, okay, this is an interesting way to share a story about my culture that is not different. It's interesting, and it's something that is already out there in the world through Starbucks or whoever that's, pimping out all these chai products. But this is where I could say, okay, how can I find, it might be hard for me to find the influencer farmer, but how do I find somebody that really believes in our culture in a new and contemporary way?
You can buy Jaya anywhere. No, I agree.
Right? Like, here's where I could find, like, I could, arguably I could find Lil Singh on the internet.
Is this the first brand deal that you're going to give me, actually?
You bet.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I signed it for you. So
yeah, no, I think you're right. Like, this is a great way. And this is by the way, I got to try that espresso martini. I think you have it on the
it's really cool
website. But yeah.
But that's where I could find somebody who, like you said, if you're going to find a brand ambassador that actually believes in your story and your product to the core, they may not believe in the product as much as they believe in the story of the product and what the product is trying to achieve. So if I look at like South Asian creators right now, South Asian creators are having a moment. AP Dillon was at Coachella, right? Diljit Dosanjh was at Coachella last year.
Isn't he coming to Edmonton?
He's coming to Edmonton, in May. Karan Aujla just won the Juno Award with fan favorite. So Lily Singh, people know who she is. I'm going to see Hassan Minhaj live at the beginning of May in San Diego because I love what he's doing and what he's saying resonates with me.
I saw him in Vancouver a couple of weeks ago.
Amazing. And, I don't know if he drinks, but I mean, I think he should be the brand ambassador for Jaya. He's partnering with Kolkata Chai Company out of New York.
But the problem is that you got to give it equity.
Sure,
and
no
have
problem.
To believe in it.
No problem. See, I don't have any issue with giving away equity because here's the thing. If you keep everything for yourself, I don't believe you can do anything in life by yourself.
Yeah.
But I'd rather have a small piece of something really big than have the whole piece of something really, really small. And also, it's not fun to work by yourself. So when somebody else has equity and has skin in the game, they want to jam with you. They might not be doing all the work. That's okay. But they want to jam. They want to come up with ideas. They want to be bold about things. Like that's really fun because at the end of the day, that's what business is all about.
Yeah.
So I have no issue giving up equity.
I think, I'm not saying it's unfortunate that you have to give up equity. I guess this is the new way of operating today, is that unfortunately in this world, you can't just come up with a great product and put an ad on TV and get people to buy it. You have to be able to pierce through that. And, creators are a really great way. And I always go back to what brands over the last 10 years have really made a dent without a creator being the face of it. Liquid Death. What's that fitness one? Gymshark.
Gymshark, yeah.
Even though they collaborate with a lot of fitness influencers, Gymshark, I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. There's not a ton. And even if you look at even the way that creators get involved. So if you look at Ryan Reynolds' brands, any of them, versus like, The Rock doing Terramana or whatever. There's a difference between someone just putting their face on the commercial versus someone being part of the entire creative process. The reason I think people are more attracted to Ryan Reynolds' brands is because he is the face and behind the scenes. Like he's not making the gin, but he is actively involved in a lot more of that creative process than someone just telling him what the creative process is going to be and then slapping his face on it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right? So I think there's even a difference. Even Selena Gomez, going back to her, she has all these videos of her testing out the shades and like being with the team, and people trust that more than if she just put her name on the product at the end of the day.
Agreed. And I think it has to be, people can smell something like this is just for the bag right away.
Totally.
And I think that, having somebody that has creator product fit, I think that's really important. The other thing I would say is that obviously we've moved into this world of short form, and everyone is chasing short form. I mean, we're chasing short form too. Yeah. But short form does not build trust. I think it builds awareness.
Yep.
But it does not build trust. And that's why I don't think short form is a trusted channel. I don't think TikTok, IG Reels, I don't think it's a trusted channel. It's a awareness. People are not, when you're like scrolling, you don't care. You're just, give me something else. Give me something else. It's not a trusted channel. So it's funny because like, I guess at the end of the day, if you want to be relevant, you have to go through these like long, and it's hard to do, right?
It is.
Creators, it took them so long to build this audience, and I think they're undervaluing their distribution, basically, their audience at the end of the day.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like there's a creator that I follow called Just Julie. I don't know if you've ever seen her on TikTok or Instagram.
No.
Okay, she's a South Asian woman. She lives in Atlanta, and she's always between like Atlanta and New York. Like if I could get a brand ambassador for Jaya, it would be her, because her content, it is mix of long and short, but it kind of goes back to your comment around taste. Like she has taste and she's creating a vibe and she's telling a story. So she is like, she's an influencer and she talks a lot about South Asian fashion, food, culture, but it's the way she tells her stories that's so interesting. So she has first of all, her humor and her like tone is really hilarious and smart, but she does this. Her mother-in-law is one of the main characters in all of her content.
Right.
And you can tell that she and her mother-in-law have a really good relationship and they vibe a lot. But the narrative on top of the videos is always about her and her evil mother-in-law. And so she paints this picture of her evil mother-in-law that you can tell is complete satire.
Right.
Complete satire. But it grabs me. The attention that it gets from me and the entertainment that I get out of it is amazing.
Yeah.
And so each thing might not be that long. Some of her stuff is longer than others, but it's the way she's telling a consistent story over time that sucks me in every time. And every time I'm scrolling and I see something from her, I stop and I watch the whole thing, because the format might be short, but the story is long, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. Well, it sticks.
That's right.
You remember it.
100%. And she's building it over time. And I just love her. I think she is undervalued for sure. And again, Just Julie, come at me.
Hey,
we'll partner.
Up and we're gonna send it to her
But
directly.
I think back to your point around like even vibe and aesthetic, I think the reason that long form is harder is because you also have to create something immersive, right? If someone's going to pay attention to you for 3 hours, like Huberman's podcast, you got to create something that is going to keep me into it. And it's not just the fact that he gives you guests that are really smart and have good information. Like
No,
I
he's
could get
putting
that.
in the work. You could
That's
see
right. That's right. And there's a certain way that he guides the conversation and he creates.
You're a Huberman fan.
I like Huberman. Yeah.
By the way, I don't know why I've been so on this, but like I feel like the news has passed. But what do you think of him dating 6 women at the same time?
So I didn't know that until you just said it.
Okay, there you go. Okay,
And
there you go.
that's
Huberman fan.
surprising to me. I don't know how he has time to do all this if he's going to date 6 women and have this podcast and be a Stanford professor and researcher and all. I don't know. I don't get it. Doesn't he get tired?
I mean, that's what one would think. I think the knock is that, obviously he's a super smart dude and his research is impeccable.
Yeah.
But the other thing, he's talking about wellness, and he's not creating a great environment for these women.
Yeah, it's weird.
But and we talked about this on the last pod, is that at the end of the day, you should not trust your heroes, and it's like everyone's human at the end of the day.
Yes.
Right. So don't put anybody on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Because they're not perfect.
Totally.
They're not perfect, and that goes to any single person. Do not put them on a pedestal. I just So on this note, and hey, Neve, can you cue up the Drake song that you created? So I've been talking about this a lot, that we are now entering into this new era that I call the end of trust. Okay. And I believe Drake has actually pushed us into this new era. I don't know if you've been following. I know you're into hip hop,
Yeah.
right? So last weekend, what happened was Drake put a diss track out against Kendrick Lamar, Future, Metro Boomin, Weeknd, Rick Ross, whole bunch of people. He's basically responding to all these guys that have been making subtle jabs at him. Okay, he put out this diss track. What's interesting is that it wasn't on the regular DSPs. It's not like Spotify or Apple Music. You'd have to like get it through YouTube or through other places. You'd have to like download an MP3 like old school. And because it wasn't on his official channel, originally everyone thought that, everyone was trying to ask the question, is this real or is this AI? Right? Is this real or AI? In fact, Kendrick Lamar came out, people thought he came out with a new diss track this week, and people, again, didn't know if it was real or AI. It turned out that was AI, and the real diss AI Drake track was real. Despite the diss and despite all the hip-hop drama, I actually think the most interesting thing of this whole situation is that AI is so good now that you can't tell if something is real or not.
Yeah.
Like anybody can now create something that compelling. In fact, Neve, who's the producer of this pod, this week I'm like, hey, Neve, I need you to create a Drake track. Could you do it? Play the track.
Bigger this shit, jump out the crib, stack up my C-No this shit, killing my ego this shit, off of the people this shit, only believe in the real, I do believe in no fear, then I got gang in this, I then the switch on the tribe, I keep it all the way real, I'm in control of my fifth.
Wow.
That's pretty good.
You created that?
Neve created that Drake track.
Man, Drake better put that on the next album.
That's what I mean.
That is really good.
So listen, if somebody that just picked up, Neve, how long did it take you to create that Drake track?
Once I got it figured out, like probably 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
Okay, yeah. I mean, it took her some time. It took her like a day to figure it out. But listen, once she did, she can now create Drake tracks at scale now. And if the experts, what was the most interesting part? There's like experts in this hip hop game. This guy named DJ Academics. He's an expert. He's like trying to figure out if this is AI or real. So if the experts can't figure out if this is real or fake, real or AI, then what chance do we have in 6 months applying to any video, any piece of audio, any image? Like, it's over. That's why it's the end of trust. And I think this is going to impact every single industry. The ability to create sophisticated deep fakes or deep fake audio.
Yeah.
The game's on.
I'm speechless. I'm speechless because you're right. It is the end of trust. And then like, I mean, I know the end of something is always the beginning of something else. So that's great.
That's the beginning of authenticity. It's the beginning of actually transparency. It's the beginning of doing things that are long form, that are real, that are hard to do, that I don't know what, like, I don't know how you break through this. Like, it's funny. My friend Ahmad just sent me a video of Steph Curry doing like a post conference interview about his team, and it was completely fake. He's dissing his teammates, but it looked so real. Like, it was his voice, lip sync.
Okay, but then even with long form and stuff like that, how does that build authenticity if you still can't trust whether that is real or not?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, it's very difficult to fake spontaneity, surprise, mistakes.
Yeah.
I actually think that if somebody makes a mistake or is umming or liking or I think that becomes more important. And I don't know, it's going to be harder and harder to do. And this is the end of trust. And Drake actually moved us into it. And I saw it because I'm like, these guys can't figure out if this is AI or not.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. So how do you and I AI fake a Huberman podcast so that we can be the next Huberman? That's what we got to figure out.
Wow, how to fake an Huberman.
Yeah. Think we could do it? I don't know. We'll have to get Neve on board.
What do you mean? What do you mean by this?
Well, like, okay, look, Huberman is investing in long form.
Yes.
He is doing things that are not necessarily fully spontaneous, but his podcasts are not perfect. They are edited a little, I'm sure.
They are, yeah.
They have to be. I don't even know how long the original conversations are if the end ends up being 3 hours.
I think he spends like, somebody told me he spends like 10 to 100 hours on every episode.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, but now couldn't we use AI to create a Huberman episode?
Yeah, we could.
So doesn't that negate some of your thoughts around how we prove authenticity? Because I don't disagree with you. I think even when I think about authenticity versus, like, even in UGC, right? The reason people like getting these micro and nano influencers is because you want people who are actually using the product. You don't want just a celebrity saying they use something and you don't know whether they actually did or not. So I do agree with you fundamentally, but I don't know how we achieve that.
I don't know how we achieve it. And I think what I do know is this, though, is that my belief is that as soon as somebody sees something that is AI driven, they will immediately dislike it. Like we're just allergic to seeing things that are fake, and that is inherent.
Yeah,
we have been trained as human beings. We don't like things that are fake. That's why I keep saying this, is that we call out people that have like surgeries and Ozempic, and we
fake handbags.
We love calling those things out. Steroids. There's like entire channels dedicated to people that are like, they're doing surgery or they're getting steroids or they're getting fake abs or whatever, like BBLs. Like, we hate that. So as soon as something that we think that is supposed to be real is fake, we will call it out. I'll give you an example of this. So Kim Kardashian yesterday put out a video. You got to see this. And it was like, it honestly, so.
Oh, for her app.
Excited about our new Skims app.
Right then, reflect.
I don't know what that is, so.
I saw this video.
I'm so excited about our new Skims app. It makes shopping so easy and is designed around the things we've heard our customers want the
honestly,
most.
and guess what all the comments were? I mean, I even put a comment. I was like, AI Kim is the real product. And then like, people like, I swear this is an AI voiceover. One thing about Kim, bro speaking like she's programmed. Like, I just feel like people don't want it.
Yeah.
I feel like that was AI.
So I didn't know if it was AI, but I felt like it was the most produced thing I've ever seen her put out.
Right.
Like, it is like an infomercial, and I don't ever see her put out content that's like that. And so that felt weird to me. And I was like, oh, did somebody force her to do this style? Like, it did feel fake. And again, I don't know in what way it was going to be. It was fake, but it did feel fake to me because I was like, this is not what I'm used to seeing from her.
So on that note then, maybe in the future, we're going to appreciate things that are not overly produced, not AI. Like, again, like something that is, I think about Kanye's Super Bowl. It wasn't exactly a Super Bowl ad, but it was on local channels in LA. But what he did was like, he was in his car and it was like a selfie, and he was like, the Yeezy we got a site, blah, blah, like, and it was a 30-second him in a car, in an Uber, like, selfie video. And by the way, that crushed for him.
Yeah.
It crushed.
Well, that's why I think when you look at even long form versus short form, I think short form is so easy to use generative AI for because you just need like really simple ideas too. So I think it comes back to the person who's prompting all these things and trying to create things. But that's why I think people are like stepping away from highly produced reels and highly produced like cleaned up photos and things like that. But in long form, you kind of still need to because you got to keep someone captivated for a really long time.
Yeah.
So if I listened to a 3-hour podcast and it was full of mistakes and and it was like, it's like when you read a really long book and you're like, that could have been 10 pages, but for some reason they made it 300. So it felt like it was worth the $35 I paid for it.
Yeah, that sounds like the review for my book. But
No.
But yeah.
But it's like, I think it's kind of like that. So with long form, there does require a certain amount of polish because you're asking somebody to invest a lot of time into watching or listening or reading or whatever. But with short form, yeah, I think that authenticity is really important. And that's why I think even like on the UGC side, I would rather have somebody in a messy kitchen pouring themselves a cocktail out of the bottle, something spilling, something, they don't have the right tools or whatever. But if everything looks like exactly perfect and it looks super produced, I'm like, this is not a real person.
Right.
This is pre-produced.
Right.
And there's a place, like I think when you go back to the original topic around marketing, there is like awareness, consideration, decision, and then whatever that last one is, ambassadorship or whatever. Like you need different things at different times to move you through that whole decision tree. So the awareness piece could be really polished. It could be a lot of these like ads, billboards, but that's not necessarily going to make me buy. It might remind me to buy it, or it might cause me to say, what is that? I got to look into it more. Ultimately, what will probably make me make a decision to buy something is something more real. Either someone I know who has similar tastes as me saying, you got to buy this, or me watching a really funny video or like whatever the case may be. But that I think will drive the decision. It might not be the whole chain, but it will be that decision point.
I forgot to mention, I think one of the things that it's going to be more important in the future is like in-person activations or
1,000%.
live experiences. I think I saw this on your Twitter, like people were commenting that, like pouring a drink live or, doing those, being at a alcohol store and doing like these samplings was not good. And you comment, do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't really remember, but I mean, I have had that conversation before because it's true. It doesn't scale doing these samplings and you're not.
That's the point. Like
exactly.
Do things that don't scale.
And also it's like drive an experience. Like you're not going to spend, if you're walking into a liquor store and you've got $50 that you were thinking you're going to allocate to buying something and you already knew what you were going to buy. Somebody's got to change your mind. How are you going to change someone's mind? To show them a cool bottle? No. You got to make them believe that thing is better than what they came in to buy. They didn't just wander into the liquor store to look around.
Yeah.
They came to get something.
Yeah.
And so I do believe that the tastings are important. Now, where they're not going to necessarily seal the deal for you is if somebody's still like, well, I needed gin because I'm making something with gin, so I got to buy gin. But next time I'll come back and buy yours. Well, now you can use other forms of media and advertising to remind them about that.
Right.
But they tasted it somewhere. And that's why I think the number one marketing channel for food and beverage is restaurants. Right? Like if somebody's coming to a restaurant, the bartender is not my customer. The bartender is my ambassador. So if they're making cocktails with my drink, somebody's tasting that and is like, what's in there? And they read the menu and they're like, I'm going to go buy that thing.
Wow.
Right? They're a marketing channel for me.
So maybe to me, it's like, let's have a party with 200 bartenders. Let's bring it out. Let's bring them out. Sponsored by this. Let's get them to try it, like it. And then organically, maybe they might get it.
Well, that was kind of the point of Cocktail Week. That was my goal. That was my idea. But was like, okay, by being part of this, I'm going to get more of these bartenders and restaurants to either feel like we're in the same fight together about trying to get more people out into these hospitality spaces.
Yeah.
Or they're going to try my product and they're going to like it and they're going to put it on the menu. I can't force them to do that, obviously.
Right.
And it did work that way, but I think where I ended up not doing the best job is I became more interested in the broader play of getting Edmontonians out into restaurants and bars and to get bartenders being celebrated for their craft and some of the bigger things, which I think are genuinely very important. So I didn't sell as many units as I would have liked.
Listen,
but
this is an elegant integration between your product and Cocktail Week. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, so that was the initial impetus and kind of idea of like, how do I help increase cocktail culture and amplify what people are already doing? Like there's already amazing bartenders and restaurateurs and even home bartenders. Like if you watch TikTok, all these amazing creators that are making drinks in their own homes, they're just creative and they're playing with flavor and playing with texture. So how do I elevate that? Well, let's create a bit of a week and a zeitgeist around it.
Love it. So, what we usually do at the end of this pod is we kind of hit up on some like hot topics, things that are kind of trending in the culture. I want to ask you about, do you watch the NBA, the WNBA? WNBA.
So I follow all these things. I think I told you this last time that I'm like headline smart.
Yeah.
So I know all the headlines. So I know about Caitlyn Clarke.
So Caitlyn Clarke got drafted by the Indiana Fever. Her starting salary first year is $76,000. I think she's going to be making $338,000 over 4 years. That's on the WNBA side. She did just sign like a $20 million Nike deal. But a lot of people talking about the pay disparity between the WNBA and the NBA. And as context, the NBA is a $10 billion league, while the WNBA is a $200 million league. But a lot of people talking about this pay disparity. And I actually think that my belief is that Caitlyn Clarke and the WNBA, that $76,000 at this moment right now, is what it is. That's the price. I think every single human on the planet would love for the WNBA stars to get paid more than the NBA stars. I don't know a single person on the planet that does not want that to happen, okay? That they don't want Caitlyn Clarke to be the number one paid player on the planet, that they want the WNBA players to get paid more than all these NBA players. But I don't know a single person on the planet that watches the WNBA, and that is the disparity.
So I think that you're 100% right. I was talking to somebody about this because I was enraged about it as well. I was like, man, she's up there with Steph Curry and all these other people. She's amazing. So at the end of the day, the NBA and the WNBA are marketplaces for money. Okay? So I think there is a disparity between men's sports and women's sports. I don't know that the disparity lives at the organizational level or at the society and cultural level, because we are not spending money on those leagues, right? So if you look at even like women's hockey, they started a league, the and PHL, whatever it's called.
Okay.
So I watched that first game. A friend of mine is actually the coach of the New York team. It's amazing.
What?
Yeah. That lives in Edmonton. He used to be the U of A Pandas hockey coach. He's in the Hall of Fame. He's incredible. Howie Draper.
Wow.
Incredible. I watched that game, and my nephews actually, I took them to a basketball game at the U of A, and we watched women's and then men's. And they told me, they're like, the men's game is going to be boring, because everyone's just going to be trying to score. The women's game is going to be more fun to watch. And they enjoyed the women's game more. So I don't think it's about the quality of women's sports. And I think the disparity, and I know you're not saying that either, but I think the disparity is about us as a cultural society, how much we're willing to spend. And what we're willing to spend then determines what that league is able to spend on its talent. So the problem is not that Caitlyn Clarke is not getting paid as much as Steph Curry. The problem is that you and I and everybody else around us is spending more money watching and fanning over the NBA versus the WNBA. And I think that's still a cultural issue around perceived value of men's performance versus women's. And WNBA is newer. So I don't know if I look historically, I don't know if it's tracking its growth faster than what the NBA did when it first started or whatever. It's not happening fast enough. I think we all agree on that. But yeah, to me, that's the biggest issue. It's not the disparity in pay, but the disparity in spending from a consumer standpoint.
I don't think it's spending. I think we value what we see. We don't value what is important, or we don't value what we think is like, the best competition. Like, we'll watch Jake Paul fight Mike Tyson, and we know that's not going to be the greatest boxing fight. We buy what's in front of us. We buy the storyline. We buy the what's in front of us. So Caitlyn Clarke and college basketball was in front of us. So we were like, well, we're gonna go watch this. I'm gonna go watch this. I'm excited because I want to be part of the discussion or part of the culture. I want to know what people are talking about because that's what's in front of us. And unfortunately, what's in front of us today is digital. And I think if the WNBA wants to be more relevant, and I would actually apply this to the NHL or any other league or anybody else that wants to get attention, is that you have to be in front of people and try to be good at that. It doesn't have to be the greatest competition. It just, you need the best story. That is what wins at the end of the day. And the NBA obviously have great players, but they have great stories.
Yeah.
Amazing stories. They have drama, they have beef, they have great stories. And the WNBA just needs that.
I think you're actually totally right. I think that's a great point. Because even I was thinking earlier about, like, when you first started this topic, I was thinking about Wrexham and, Ryan Reynolds' team. And like how people in those leagues, in that level of soccer, of football league, get paid like nothing. They get paid like 30 grand a year or something like that, because they're not at the same level as like the Premier League and stuff like that. And so I was like, oh, but there's part of it, you're right, is about the value, the total value of the league.
Yep.
But then how do you raise the total value of the league? You're right, is by telling great stories. Like now, Wrexham players are getting paid more because Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney are investing more, but also it's the type of sponsorships that they're able to bring in by creating these stories and putting them in front of people where everybody now wants to be part of the culture. And maybe the WNBA needs to think a little bit about like its branding and its marketing so that its players can benefit from the stories that it's building. Like, right now everyone's talking about the Toronto Raptor that got lifetime ban.
Yes.
Whatever. Like what, it's like there's good stories and bad stories, but both of those add to the overall value of the league. And the WNBA, it's kind of just like neutral.
Yeah. Same thing with the NHL.
Yeah, it's vanilla.
I'm going to pitch you something, actually. I've been talking about this like incessantly to every single person, every single one of my friends. I just float this by them.
Okay. What
do you think about buying the Edmonton Elks? Now, let me before I want to let you marinate on this.
Okay.
So the CFL, I'm not a big CFL connoisseur, but I would assume that their ratings are faltering. Their brand relevance is faltering. But it's still football at the end of the day. It's still really good football. If you watch a CFL game, it's actually awesome football. It's a really great product with absolutely horrific marketing. Okay. And we know that football is like an event. It's like people love football. It's not only just the play, it's like everything around it. And I feel like if we could turn the CFL back into like a moment, and that's the beautiful thing about football. It's not played that often. It's like there's 18 games. I don't know how many games are in the CFL. It's a moment. It's an event. It's a experience. And the Elks have been losing like $3 million every single year or something like that. Or like the last report, they lost $3 million. They're up for sale. For the first time ever, they're like up for sale. What do you think about buying them?
I think I would never do it. I'll tell you why, though. I'll tell you why.
Why?
Because of what you just said about the WNBA and the NHL. It's actually not about the team. It's about the league. I think the league needs a bit of reinvention.
Right.
So I would buy the CFL potentially.
Yeah.
Let's buy the CFL. I think that would be more fun. However, that being said,
CFL. Okay, yeah.
Right. That being said, I do think that the Elks could be an interesting challenge because I agree with you. Their marketing sucks. And I think rather than buy it, they should give it to us for a year, 2 years.
We would have to change the name, by the way, back to the Eskimos.
100%.
Because that's where the brand value exists.
Or change the whole thing completely. Like try not to make it another.
No. We gotta go back to the heritage.
Okay,
heritage
maybe.
Brand value.
Okay, maybe. But I think we need to, like, if I look at what the Edmonton Rush did with lacrosse, nobody knew what the hell lacrosse was. But when people went to that game, they had a blast.
Right.
They had a blast. They made it an experience. They picked a target audience. They figured out what that audience wanted. They made it affordable and they made it super fun and they made it entertainment. Nobody gave a shit what was happening on the field. Nobody even knew. Same thing with the Stingers. Stingers have done an amazing. I don't know if you've been to a Stinger. Have you been to a Stingers game?
Yeah, great game.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
The experience is incredible. All the way from picking the right size of room.
Yeah.
Right?
And Jeet Minhas just like
That's right.
got in there.
And she's going to hopefully buy my brand. But anyway, I think Manjeet
Okay,
Minhas,
yeah.
I think what they've done is like the Stinger said, we want to be, I heard somewhere that they said, we want a family of 4 to be able to come to this and spend less than $150 all in. So like their food is cheaper. Every kid that I saw in that place was wearing a Stingers t-shirt. The room size was appropriate. They do autographs after the game. The music is hype. Like it's a good time. Parking is free when you buy a ticket. Like all these little things that add to the overall experience. I think that's where the Elks need help. So I think rather than us buy it, I think they should give it to us.
Okay.
We turn it around.
Right.
Right. And then they buy it, then they take it back and we've got a piece of equity in it.
Wow.
That's what I think. But I'll only do it if you do it and a couple other smart people.
Okay, sounds good. Well, listen, we have 1 minute.
Okay.
So I just want to say, are you a Taylor Swift fan?
Yes.
Because today, the Tortured Poets Department album just dropped, and I looked at it, and there's 31 songs on it. That's a lot of songs.
That is a lot of songs.
But she's going at Kim Kardashian on a couple different songs, and I just, Taylor Swift is an icon, incredible. I can't get in. I know I'm gonna get rocked for this. I can't get into Taylor Swift.
So I'm not a Swiftie in that I don't like all the songs or know all the songs even and all that kind of stuff. There's a few songs I really like, but I think in general, I just like what she has
I agree.
done.
I
so
like
when you
her.
say, are you a Taylor Swift fan? I mean, I'm a fan in that context.
Okay. You like her business. I love her business.
I do like her business. I think it's smart.
She's a go. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the music.
But I think that's why she does so well. Because it's like, it's appealing. It's again about like she's doing things at scale.
Yeah.
Right. So everybody, like the masses love her, and not necessarily everybody, but the masses. And so I think that's like, to her, she'd rather have more people than every person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So are you going to listen to this album?
I'm sure my nephews will make me listen to a few tracks, but I'm going to wait on it. I'm not one of those people who's going to jump in the car and turn it on.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait till somebody tells me these are the good tracks. Listen to them.
Right. The
But
headlines.
31
You're the
31's a
headlines.
lot.
You're
Yeah.
waiting for the headlines.
But 31 is a lot of tracks. Like
It is a lot of tracks.
and you don't generally like every track on every album. So I'm going to have to listen to all the
What's the
fine
last
ones I
album,
like.
the full album that you actually listened to? A full album that you actually listened to?
Cowboy Carter.
Oh, okay.
I don't like every song on it,
Yeah.
but I listen to the whole thing end to end.
Are you a Beyonce person?
100% I'm a Beyonce person. She
You
is.
just said you're a Taylor and a Beyonce person.
No, but
on
I
the
am
spot.
I am part of the Beehive. I am not a Swiftie.
Oh, you're a Beehive?
But I'm in the
Okay.
Beehive. Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to say this with peace and love. I can't name you a song that has, like, since Crazy in Love, which was 1990, like, okay, I've been joking.
I think it was
but
99,
I feel like Beyonce, I'm like more of like a Destiny's Child Beyonce. Like I like that was my Bills era. That's what I loved her.
That was great.
And I don't know, after that, I don't know. I feel like
You didn't listen to the self-titled Beyonce album that had like
What did it have?
EXO, Drunk in Love.
Drunk in Love.
And then even this last album had that Renaissance song. It was so good. Or that
No.
Break My Soul. Yeah, Break My Soul. No?
I haven't. Maybe I'm just
And you got to watch the movies. The movies are incredible.
Yeah.
I went and saw the Renaissance
Okay.
movie. Incredible. Like just looking at how she actually creates is really, you will like it because you are a creator. So I think watching that is just really, whether or not you like her music is irrelevant.
Yeah, I love her too.
You will
I love
appreciate
her.
that movie.
Yeah, maybe my music taste is just I need to improve it. Anyways, loved having you on. Thank you so much for signing this bottle. Where can people pick up the products, by the way?
People can pick the products up all over Alberta.
Yep.
Just go to your favorite liquor store and ask them for Jaya or Sweet Pea. And if they don't have it, they will order it.
Or go to the Edmonton, Alberta International Airport.
That's right.
In Customs. You will find it there. And it's actually beautifully placed.
Thank you. Yes.
It's like prime real
They've done a
estate.
great job in that store. I love that store. So I would say, yes, you're right. Go to the Edmonton International Airport, especially when you're flying through, so you can buy duty free and get it there.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much for coming
Thank you,
on.
Shawn.
Rate, subscribe, whatever you got to do. We'll see you in the next one.